The aim of this weekend workshop is to understand and put into practice the principles of contact improvisation and to use these principles to respond to the work of sculptress Phyllida Barlow. Contact improvisation is the democratic dance form working with a partner or a group of dancers. It's based on the physical principles of touch, momentum, shared weight and following a shared point of contact. Contact improvisation explores the skills of falling, of counterbalance, of rolling, of lifting with minimal effort, and all with a spherical awareness and attention to our surroundings and those that we're dancing with.
We kind of started using the kind of shared point of contact one, so we just started with kind of warming up using just kind of our backs as a point of support, and then we kind of moved that into more rolling kind of contact point just to kind of get a feel for the space. And we're kind of working with a bit around the corner in terms of the set upstairs, which is kind of, it's a bit that kind of has one of the in-way kind of roots and dead ends, so we just kind of wanted to work on kind of building up some form of structure between our two bodies, because it's definitely felt like to us that it was kind of almost building blocks. We just wanted to start with kind of like quite a lot of like weight resistance and that kind of thing, just with our palms and with our backs, to try and get that first kind of point of like support.
We were working with mainly a fixed point of contact. We sort of started with our eyes closed and our backs were together, and we were just started with focusing on our breath and connecting to each other's breath as well, and then slowly sort of incorporating small movements into it. So it's really simple, basic movements, but just really about connecting to the space.
We've been kind of working with contact and sending some information in the form of touch, force, direction, pressure, weight, and then that would make the other person respond in the manner that seemed appropriate. So it's a negotiated kind of process. Yesterday we were working in a very vacant space, so that was quite different, and we had the necessary degree of focus, whereas here it's a much more exposed, vulnerable state that we're put in.
We were using the impulse and response, but rather than doing it just in a pair, we've been trying it in a three with one person giving the impulses, but also the two people responding. If they end up close to each other, then they can also give each other impulses. So we're changing it up a bit. And it's interesting in the space with the sculptures as well, because that's another thing that we need to be like thinking about and like taking in that space. Our movement relates to the sculpture in the way that the different elements of the sculpture all rely on each other in order to be able to exist in that moment. So we are looking at how each element of our movement relies on the next one to lead to the next one and relied on the previous one to get to that point. The balance of one object with another, it needs it to support it.
We think that our movement relates to the sculpture. I guess in a way it was very small, simple, quite not very dynamic movements, but I feel like that relates well in the sense that the sculpture is technically static, it's at a fixed point, but there's also this energy there, and it's almost, I feel like the sculptures feel as if they're in that transition of moving.
The bit that we're looking at in particular is very built up in terms of different blocks, so we wanted to kind of get that real feeling of the weight resistance against the pair of us, and that kind of sense of balance that the sculpture really seems to have, especially in the section we're looking at, because it's kind of two solid blocks that come together as corners.
It is easy to relate the movement in quite a superficial way to the material form of the sculpture, taking in the angles, the empty spaces, the absence or presence within it, particularly this installation. So it would be quite easy to just replicate the sort of spatial situations that are already there, or bring the dancer close to the surfaces. I'm not really sure what I'm looking for, but I hope that maybe we'll come to it. Maybe it will have something to do with the process and thinking about how this work was made.
We're finding out what the relationship is between the work of Phyllida Barlow and contact improvisation. We've worked with different elements that are apparent in both the sculpture and in contact improvisation, such as forces, direction, texture and touch, momentum, gravity and weight, and motion and dynamic, as well as the time and the process these different mediums take.